I'm calling about a past due balance on your account. Episode 6. I think we might have a problem. I work for a special collections agency and I don't think our customers are human. It's been pretty crazy, but I've had a few people ask for updates, so here's a quick update of the things I've been up to over the past several months. Thanks for making sure I'm still alive. You never know in this industry. For part of that time, I was just buried in work. As you may remember, Jerry retired and we were already short-staffed as it was. For a couple of weeks though, I was literally buried. Well, maybe buried isn't the right words. It was more like trapped in a small, suffocating place of darkness that wasn't quite here or there. But that's another story for another day. I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk about that. How, in the nearly absolute silence, you could hear breathing besides your own. I'd been dreading my performance review so much that I nearly made myself sick. It wasn't my first review with my boss. He did mine when I worked in normal collections. But what I've since learned about him didn't help. Something about your work being evaluated by someone that has both the means and the possible motivation to consume every ounce of your existence is pretty stressful. We mainly just stared at each other at first. I wasn't sure if he was aware that I knew, or if it even mattered that I did. He's got this weirdly unemotional face most of the time anyways, though I honestly tried not to maintain eye contact for too long, because if I do, I feel that dazed sensation of having stared too long directly at the sun. It went better than I feared it might, although there were some areas that I think I was rated a bit unfairly in. I mean, it's not my fault that compared to my co-workers, I have a fragile skeletal frame, or am at high risk of bodily dismemberment. He did commend me for helping the customer that first got me into special collections in the first place. You know the one. I wrote about him in my very first post. The normal collections customer whose file accidentally got mixed up with someone else's. My boss cheerfully informed me that his skin has been regrowing quite nicely. But even though I was partially being compared to my less than human co-workers, I know that I've really come a long way. Some of the customers know me by name now, and I haven't had to reference the specific information on how to survive working with the variety of beings of otherworldly horror that I deal with for at least a third of the calls. Which is a good thing, because I'm still coming across some potentially deadly notes in some of them. At this point, I think we're far beyond error here. I think it's definitely malicious. I'm still not sure if I made a mistake contacting the guy in the mirror. All I learned is something that I can do literally nothing about and keeps me up at night. Based on what Pooljam mentioned, I've been covering up all the mirrors in my apartment, but I'm starting to hear weird sounds coming from them. The other day, one rattled so hard that I was worried it was going to straight up jump off the wall. I did take the towel off, just for a moment, to examine the glass, but nothing about the mirror or the wall behind it looked out of the ordinary. A few days later, I thought I'd left the TV on. The voices coming from the living room were loud, heated. When I walked back in there, the room was dark. The conversation abruptly stopped, but I could still hear a faint humming coming from the mirror above it. I'm not sure how worried I should be. I haven't really told anyone else yet though, for reasons I'll explain later. Halloween was pretty awesome, partially because I could keep telling myself that the true forms of my co-workers were all a part of the decor, or just costumes. Sometimes I still need to tell myself that, just to be able to walk into a dark room alone again. Yes, I know that most of my co-workers are good people, but sometimes seeing them or our customers for what they really are reminds me that each day that goes by where I have all of my skin, bones and organs can't be taken for granted. When I saw Sandy standing by a bowl of punch wearing a spider costume, you know, the fuzzy ones with the extra legs connected to the person's arms by string, It made me smile. Well, until I walked up to her and she introduced herself to me. It turns out I was meeting Sandy's willing vessel for the first time. She was a really nice lady, and although I was curious about some of her life choices, it seemed like it would be rude to ask. I didn't interact with Sandy in her true form, so I'm not entirely sure if she was the mass of thin, spindly limbs shrouded in a dark mist, or the tall, shrieking thing. Or maybe she just wasn't there that day at all. I'm okay with not knowing. What I found particularly funny is that human Sandy lacks the heavy Midwestern accent and never called me hun once, which leads me to believe that whatever sort of being of indescribable horror the Sandy I know is, those mannerisms and penchants for sequins are entirely her own. I was honestly afraid of seeing what Pooja might look like, since he had once described himself as human adjacent, but he looked the same as he did every day. Long black hair tied back, aviator glasses, hints of social anxiety written on his face. I think he just forgot it was Halloween. A lot of my calls over the past few weeks were the usual. I had a few regarding a customer occupying a person or a place they weren't supposed to. Hello Jennifer, this is Michaela with the Green Vista Group, and I am calling regarding your unauthorized relocation. Please recall that per your agreement with GVG that you are forbidden from travelling anywhere within 200 miles of the thinnest point of Earth's crust. If you do not return inland, we will be forced to remove you from the location. If you fail to comply after being relocated, you will be removed from existence. Note: if you feel your saliva, tears, or aqueous human begin to boil, hang up phone immediately. We did have a few outstanding balances, one so large I had to Google what a number with that many zeros is called. I'm going to have to trust my company's math here, because at the rate they were charged and the final balance, I'm pretty sure they began accruing debt before our universe was formed. Apparently, the customer's name is impossible to transcribe into written language. Sandy had to repeat it to me and tell me how to pronounce it at least 5 times. Hello, untranscribable. This is Michaela with the Green Vista Group, and I am calling regarding your outstanding balance of 4 nonillions. Would you like to enroll in a payment plan today? As always, we accept payments in gold, units of time, and now accept Visa. Note: customer takes great offence to mispronunciation of their name. I did have one customer that was extremely combative. They didn't try to pull my soul out from my body through the phone like the guy a few weeks back did, but he was super rude. I asked if he wanted to speak to my supervisor, and that calmed him down at least. Sometimes it pays to have Alj Nathal, the Devourer, as your boss, although Sandy did advise me not to say his true name too many times, which is advice I certainly plan on taking. Oh, and you probably shouldn't say it either, or read it, or think it, just to be safe, My heart sunk a bit when I realised the mirror guy was on my call list, but I got over it eventually. I had my folder, I was ready to go, debating how work appropriate it was to ask a customer why they are lurking in my bathroom mirror, but he never answered. I called him several times throughout the week, and he never picked up. So, if he's not there, where is he? But that's not even what's really worrying me. On top of everything else going on, yesterday I finally found the person behind the scripts and instructions. The being that might be intentionally putting us, the newer employees especially, at risk. I didn't realise it was him at first, because he was in a different office. I'd had to go far from my desk to track down the item I needed for the next call when I saw the piles of manila folders and stopped in my tracks. I could make out the gold-rimmed aviators from above the monitors, although it took him a while to notice me. I went home sick and have been ignoring his calls and texts. I'm going to have to go back to work Monday, but hopefully I can figure out what to do before then. Oh, and for those of you that asked, yes, we're still hiring. Feel free to use me as a reference. I just want to thank JamFranz for allowing me to narrate that story. If you like what you heard here, head over to their Reddit page and show them some love. I'll leave a link for the original story in the description below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and as always, stay tuned for one more nightmare.